You can use cloud computing or creating computer systems with the intent of connecting groups that are centralized around certain ideas. And what's trending now is the concept of old government, concept of governments, types of governments. You have communism, capitalism, socialism, all these different kinds of governments that exist. You have to look at governments that are instituted around principles, because governments are a reflection of principles. Just like our Constitution is a piece of paper, it's principles and ideas for the society and civilization to be civil and free, and to respect the sovereign rights of each individual, to form together to create consensus about their expression of government and their needs as citizens of the government. So the illusion that takes place is the actual building up of your government around this paper, around this Constitution, or whatever document you want to create principles to build your government around. If you strip down governments, it comes back down to principles. So our constitutional rights just protect our freedoms, and we've built government around those freedoms. And that's with every government who builds their government based around their own principles. So it's like going into a store and looking upon the shelves and seeing which government you would like to live in. Would you like to live in a communist government, or a socialist government, or a capitalistic government? You know, these options are limited when it comes to governmental models and systems. So, since we have limited options, it also, when you separate yourself from humanity in the globe, you narrow yourself into a world that's two-dimensional, a world that feeds into the illusion of limited options. So you never question to put another option out on the market. You never question to create a competing idea or a competing economic system that could not only be more efficient, but outcompete, outclass, and outprinciple any government in existence on this planet. So when it comes to data computing and cloud computing, Twitter, Facebook, Skype, the iPhone, the iTablets, those devices, those technologies could be used to create a different form of governance. And once the thought appears in your mind that you can create something totally new, then the options start to open on the shelves of the governmental store of which government you would like to live in. And you just simply redirect your purchase and your focus to which government you would like the most, the one that protects the most principles for your divine rights as a human citizen of the planet. So governments do a really good job at making you think that what they've built up around the Constitution or any other document or any other principle that's out there now, that is the limit. So people will go to school and they'll get a job, or they'll join the workforce, or they'll become a protester or an artist or a singer, but they will do it inside the confines of the governmental structure that has been created for them. And this is how you perpetuate the options of government. Now, when you start to get a revolution, when you start to get people who are beginning to revolt in ideology and psychology, for those people who start to reject current trends and current governmental models and current governmental systems, you realize that this revolt leads to a new space of thought. The new space of thought, of course, your first intention is to have peaceful protests. Now, you can do that inside your own self. Once you wake up within the governmental structure that you abide to, and you see that not all is well within your nation state, or that not all is well within your own state, local town, and community, then that evokes a calling for you to wake up. And as it pulls you out of your world and out of your governmental old system that exists now, you start to see and become compassionate for the issues that are affecting not just you, but your community, your state, your nation, and of course the planet. So as you go through each level and connecting your thoughts and emotions to the outside constructs of reality, you begin to realize more and more that systems currently are defunct and that they're not really working well together. So within this space, you have the ability to actually, for those who are strong enough, for those who have the willpower and the intelligence to create and pull together new computing systems for the government, and not for the government, because that's an illusionary term, but for a different model, a different brand, a different kind of government. The space is available as of right now to create it. So all those basement geeks and computing geniuses need to band together in order to create new governmental systems that can directly compete with our current government. And I want to remind you what that means if you compete directly with the current government. And it's the most intelligent form of revolution without having to resort to violence, because you're using your intelligence to outwit, to outsmart, and to out-strategize your opponent. And you can do this with just intelligence and intelligent thought and collecting together to form a unit, a band of movement, and a wave of form and function. If you give the technologies to create such interconnectivity, then the actual manifestation of the movement of this new computing system will actually emerge out of the confines of that vacuum space. So in other words, we have to actually create it. You have to reject the government that you're in now and understand that it doesn't take care of every single problem. And you cannot accept that that is a part of life. You have to try to strive for better. Try to be more all-inclusive. Try to understand a solution that could lead to everyone's happiness. And this goes back to the Constitution. Once again, the Constitution was a set of principles written on a piece of paper to guide government and governmental structure to express as highly as possible the good for all and for the protection of all rights. Unfortunately, those with negative intent can go into any governmental structure and try to corrupt it. And when you start creating corruption, then you create mistrust. And if you create secrets and shadows inside of a government, then you get resentment. That resentment over time will grow into a revolt, into a revolution. So what you see manifesting in the Occupy Wall Street movement is a reflection of this resentment. It's buried deep down inside the human condition because most humans just want to live. We just want to live in peace. Once again, back to those divine sovereign rights. So the space that starts to become created when these protesters stand and occupy these places, even though you may not know what form they're trying to take, it's the beginnings and it's the overflowing of that resentment that spills out into the streets as a revolt and a protest against our current governmental models and systems. So that vacuum space is what we exist in currently. And so I ask you, for those with intelligence, those with computing knowledge and systems knowledge and economic knowledge, now is the time to come together to form new modes of governmental systems, to create a new product for humanity to choose. And there is no law against creating your own government, mind you. There is no law that prevents you for the right to assemble. And in fact, if you're not happy, we have every constitutional right to find that happiness. It doesn't always have to lead to a civil war or to killing each other or having to aggressively attack the police state that is becoming so evidently clear that exists. We can do it with intelligence. We can find the back door. We can create the solution from the problems of others. And there's power in numbers. And it's much like Facebook or Twitter, who collects users, millions of users, together can collect and form, function. It's the evolution of the social media. But if you were to fast forward and try to understand where the singular result will end up, the net result of equilibrium with social media, then within the space, this vacuum space of power, in this vacuum space to create something new, at some point in time, we are going to merge and integrate the financial systems, and we can create new ones. In order to do this, we're going to have new social medias, business media, educational media, and those will merge together to form real-time data collection. The singular points of real-time data collection creates a direct reflection of the current trends, emotions, psyche, the state of human condition and affairs. It's a direct reflection of the human expression to pour all data into one singular point and to make it transparent, not in secret, not behind closed doors, but to be accessible and transparent to everybody, the singular data points of all these sectors of civilization. And for anyone to be able to access the system and not only see how they've contributed, but how the whole of human civilization contributes to the direction and the creation of its society. So this is why we must band together. This is why we must form groups. We must start integrating, interconnecting, creating our own media. We need to create platforms where if you want to speak out, that speech from any person or submission of an expression or concern by any person to be transparently accessed over this integrated platform. It needs to be simplified. And that's where we're all heading now. They're already doing Skype conferences and the Occupy movements. And this is a first step to allow the digital technology to allow people to voice their expressions and concerns. Now, to draw that into a singular domain and to tie those singular domains to your local, state, national, and international communities, you will create a net that ebbs and flows over this data collection. So the first manifestation of priorities would naturally rise to the top. If the world voted on, let's say, polluting the ocean as a top priority, then that is where all resources will go to taking care of that priority. Merging with the financial sector in an open and transparent way will end the secretive Federal Reserve System and the secretive central banking systems of the world. To create open, transparent financial systems so that all monies that are collected can be viewed transparently. All contributions can be viewed transparently. The flow of money, where the money comes from, this is to be openly viewed and accessed at any time of the day for the public to see transparently at all times. This can be done, it's rather simple, using data collection, data sharing, and real-time polling grids. And this is something that can be created. When it comes to what currently exists in media, we already know that there's alternate media. That will eventually take over as we band together to form our own publicity from banding together. In other words, we'll have more followers. These new governmental modes will have more followers than the old governmental modes, and people will start turning away. And if we apply enough pressure to the old governmental system, then we can create transitions within corporations, within the corporate minds. And hopefully they will relinquish the power of the old paradigm, and they will invest their profits into the new governmental systems. If they don't, then the majority of those who are following the new governmental modes will force disclosure or force them out of business. Or they will shrink into a certain contribution and number to the whole of the system. But it won't be how it is now, where corporations have banded together and run the gamut on the world. In this new governmental model, where all citizens are united, combined within new governmental systems, that force, that momentum, will dwarf the now corporate-controlled agenda of global dominance. So it is a numbers game. The mathematics is a universal language, so it does come down to what you would call critical mass. And these critical masses are the public waking up. These critical masses are combinations and collections of data from real humans forming together with like-minded feelings. And usually when you're involving governments, you're talking about revolt or revolution. So those who have those feelings inside, as that starts to grow, will unify and band together over new forms of democracy and new forms of computing systems and governmental systems. And that as it attracts followers, it will begin to dwarf the corporate state. So the idea and the goal, and it's just a byproduct of creating better governmental economic systems. This is a byproduct, but the byproduct is that it creates pressure. Pressure on those who don't assimilate into this new system to do so. So I ask for the creation of a real-time polling grid, platforms on how to collect data from your local, state, national, and international communities, ways to collect votes, data in the financial sector, to collect a total World Bank, national, state, or local bank that is completely transparent, where all funds can be seen at all times, all votes can be seen at all times. Any voice, any concern, any expression can be viewed, filtered, sifted through, and as the natural evolution of leaders start to manifest and become present, that they will gain popularity within this system. So they will start to rise to the top. Councils will form around these groups to solidify representation, and priorities will start to be carved out of these details. The priorities are real issues, and there's so many of them that they're going to be handled and broken up by the groups from local, state, national, and international forums. But since the whole of the system is transparent, then everyone in the world can vote on any issue. So a world issue, for instance, like the pollution of the waters, is a world issue, and that will belong to the world international forums. Something like potholes in the road will be a local matter. But being a citizen in this new system, then you'll be able to express your concerns for both. And all that data should be collected, historically collected, safely, and make it completely transparent to all human citizens. Now, that's a complex thing to do, but it is a simple thing to do. And we can start by banding together and start voicing our concerns, and you collect that information and you keep it there. Because what's going to be refined are demands. What's going to be refined are knowledge, truth. And that's going to filter up to the top. And that's going to be the front. That's going to be the movement. At some point, using these systems, as they're already using Facebook and Twitter and other computing systems to create business models, small businesses can merge with communities just on a data level. So data entry, there will be different levels for businesses, but for those businesses that decide to merge completely, will be open and transparent to the system. Educational institutions will be more open and transparent, as all information educationally will be shared. This will lift the specific schools that are very difficult to get into, as education becomes more of a universal idea, more of a human right idea to be able to learn without having limits imposed on the human being who is trying to gather information for their education, for their career, or whatever it is that they decide to do. So those limits and parameters will be lifted once the educational institutions merge into an open and transparent data collection center. All these will take place and they'll help each other, but most of these new technologies are going to be centered around the release of suppressed technology patents by the industrial military complex and by the United States government. So each government, I'm sure, is guilty of crimes. We have the ability to create a new government with a clean slate, innocent of any crime. As far as I know, is truth. All governments, as of right now, are guilty of something. And that's why they're outdated. So we have the time and the intelligence to create something new. And a lot of this is going to be centered around the release of free energy technologies, healthcare technologies, and exotic technologies that the government holds in secret. And it's not difficult to find these patent numbers. But this is going to be one of the first and foremost demands of this movement, is to release those technologies. Once we release those technologies, we'll be able to assimilate those technologies into businesses, into the educational centers, into your life, your residential. So, with that, I say that we move in solidarity into this space, this vacuum of power that exists for creating new governmental modes and systems. Start merging all your data together. And what you will be witnessing in the next months to years will be the birth of these new systems as they come online. You are to be reminded that they are built around principles of freedom, innocence, and justice. It's open transparency for all. True democracy for all, with no crimes attached to it. To be free and clear, to live based off those original constitutional ideas of freedom. It's time to create the critical mass for ourselves.